So have you ever heard of a single battle that didn't just win a war, but literally wiped a 1,000-year-old empire off the map? Well, that's what we're talking about today. This is the story of the Battle of Qadisiyah, an absolutely epic clash that changed the world forever. And it all starts right here with this incredible prophecy. But you know, the strange thing is, the spark for this whole conflict wasn't some grand military plan. Nope. It all came down to one moment. A single act of arrogance from a powerful king who had absolutely no idea what he was setting in motion. Okay, so let's get into it. It all kicks off with a letter. Picture this. It's the year 628. The Prophet Muhammad, leading this very new, very small community in Medina, decides to send messages to the biggest powers on earth, inviting them to Islam. And one of those letters, it lands right at the court of Khusro, the incredibly powerful king of the Persian Sasanian Empire. So just imagine the scene, right? Khusro, this ruler of a massive superpower, gets the letter and he's just furious. Why? Because his name was written after the prophets. He sees it as this huge insult from some desert leader, and in a fit of pure rage, he tears the letter to shreds. Now, when the news gets back to the prophet about what happened, he simply prays that Khusro's kingdom would be torn apart in the very same way. And what happens next is just wild. Not long after, Khusro is murdered by his own son. This one act throws the entire Persian Empire into total chaos, into a civil war that just eats away at it from the inside. Okay, so fast forward a few years, Persia is a mess, just years of infighting. The top generals finally realize, hey, we've got to get our act together or we're going to be conquered. So this really powerful general, Rustam Farkhzad, he basically takes charge. He finds a young boy from the royal family, Yazdegerd III, and puts him on the throne as a puppet king, really just as a symbol to get all the warring factions to finally unite. Now, this new threat from the rising Muslim armies, it did something that was basically unthinkable. For the first time in 800 years, the Roman and Persian empires, we're talking bitter, mortal enemies for centuries, they buried the hatchet. All that history of hatred, gone. Why? They formed an alliance for one simple reason: to crush this new power before it got any bigger. Okay, just look at these numbers for a second. This really shows you what we're talking about here. The alliance, led by General Rustam, they show up with 150,000 soldiers. And they brought friends. 33 war elephants, which were basically the tanks of the ancient world. And on the other side, the Muslim army had just 30,000 soldiers and 0 elephants. I mean, this isn't just a David versus Goliath situation. The odds were absolutely insane. So back in the capital, Medina, the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, he gets the news, and he knows just how serious this is. He understands that to go up against a force like that, you don't just need a good soldier, you need a legend. So the search began for the perfect person to lead this army. And the man they chose? Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. I mean, his resume was just incredible. He was the Prophet's own uncle from his mother's side. He was one of the very first people to embrace Islam. On top of that, he was a celebrated hero, a legendary archer. His courage was so famous that the Prophet himself had given him the highest possible praise. So yeah, the choice was obvious. This was the guy. So the stage is set. The two massive armies finally face each other on the plains of Qadisiyah. But right away, there's a huge problem. A dramatic twist. Their chosen commander, Sa'd, gets hit with this terrible illness. He was in so much pain from boils and sciatica that he literally couldn't even sit on a horse. So he had no choice but to command the entire battle from a bed set up on top of a nearby fortress. Just imagine that, watching your men fight for their lives against impossible odds, and you can't even be down there with them. On day one, the Persians unleash their secret weapon, the war elephants. And as these massive beasts charge forward, the Arabian horses just lose it. They had never seen anything like them before. They freak out, they bolt, and the Muslim cavalry lines just completely crumble. The whole army is thrown into chaos. It honestly looked like the battle was over before it even really began. I mean, think about it. It was a complete tactical nightmare. These elephants were just plowing through the infantry, and the cavalry was useless. So, what do you do? Seriously, how do you fight an enemy you've never even seen before, an enemy your entire army is terrified of? Well, from his high vantage point, Sa'd sends out a desperate order. He calls on one specific tribe, the Banu Tamim. Now, these guys were known all over Arabia as the fiercest, most courageous warriors around. Their job was simple, but sounded totally impossible. Deal with the elephants. The fate of the entire battle pretty much rested on them now. Then, on day 2, a little bit of hope arrives. Reinforcements show up, led by this absolute legend of a warrior named Kaka ibn Amr. But Kaka wasn't just a great fighter, he was a master of psychological warfare. He split his small force up, had them arrive in waves, kicking up tons of dust, to make it look like a gigantic, endless army was arriving. It was a total bluff, but it worked. Muslim morale just shot through the roof. But the relief didn't last long. Day 3, it's famously called the Day of Hardships for a reason. This was the darkest moment of the battle. The Persians, getting frustrated, bring the elephants back out, but this time they're heavily protected by infantry. They smash into the Muslim lines with even more force. The Muslim army is exhausted, they're at their breaking point, and it really seemed like it was all over. But in that moment of pure desperation, a final, crazy, high-risk plan was put into action. The order went out: forget the armor, forget the soldiers, go for the elephant's eyes. So Kaka and his men, they managed to get to the lead elephant, this huge white one, and they blind it with their spears. The animal goes nuts, shrieking in pain, and it turns and stampedes right back through its own army. The other elephants see this and follow it, creating this massive wave of chaos. In an instant, the Persians' greatest weapon turned on them and tore their own lines to pieces. So we get to day 4, and as if things weren't chaotic enough, nature itself decides to join the fight. A massive sandstorm kicks up, blinding the Persian army. Kaka sees his chance. He grabs a small, elite unit for a mission that was basically a special ops raid. Their goal wasn't to fight the army, it was to sneak through the storm and the chaos with one single objective: find and eliminate General Rustam. And they find him. After a chaotic fight near his command post, Rustam gets wounded and tries to escape. But a Muslim soldier named Hilal runs him down and kills him. And then, in this moment of pure genius, he drags Rustam's body back, climbs onto the general's now empty throne, and screams out for everyone to hear, "By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have killed Rustam." The psychological blow was immediate. The entire Persian army, now leaderless and hearing that their legendary general was dead, just broke. It was a total collapse. So, the battle is over, an impossible victory. But the story doesn't end there, because the true measure of a nation isn't just how it fights, but how it handles victory. And to see that, we need to leave the battlefield and go back to the capital, Medina, to see how the Caliph, Umar, reacted to the news. Now, while the fate of his entire nation was being decided hundreds of miles away, Umar wasn't chilling in a palace. He wasn't sitting on a throne. Every single day, he would walk for miles outside the city, just staring at the horizon, anxiously waiting, asking anyone who came down the road if they had news from the front. And then, finally, he sees a rider coming fast. He stops the man and asks, "Any news?" The messenger, who has no idea he's talking to the Caliph because Umar is dressed so simply, just bursts out with the amazing news of the victory. The messenger says he has to hurry to tell the Caliph officially, and as he rides on, Umar, the most powerful man in the state, starts running on foot right alongside the horse, eagerly asking for every single detail from this regular soldier. And as they're running, Umar's first question isn't about treasure or land. It's about the casualties. The numbers, as you can see, were just devastating. 8,000 Muslims had died, and over 20,000 Persian soldiers were killed. It was a massive victory, for sure, but it came at a terrible cost. It was only when they finally got into the city and everyone started greeting Umar as the commander of the faithful that the poor messenger finally realized in complete shock who he'd been talking to this whole time. Once he was back in the city, Umar gathered everyone to announce the victory. But the very next thing he did was say this, and it's just such a powerful contrast to the arrogance of that Persian king who tore up the letter all those years ago. He was reminding his people and himself that being a leader wasn't about power, it was about responsibility given by God. And so, the impossible battle was won. It was an incredible victory, built on clever strategy, unbelievable courage, and unshakable faith. But this was really only the beginning. The Persian army was broken, sure, but the heart of their 1,000-year-old empire, the legendary capital city of Qadisiyah, was still standing. So the question remained, what would it take to capture that?